Ferrari may have just built the fastest car on the grid. 200 meters gained on Red Bull out of a corner. Explosive traction. Unmatched launch. Pole position pace. And then, it stopped. Lewis Hamilton. Final day of Bahrain testing. Full race simulation. The car didn't crash. It didn't spin. It just lost power. Ferrari called it an anomaly. But here's the problem. Under the new hybrid rules, if your energy system fails, you are not just slower. You are vulnerable. And what happened in Bahrain might have exposed a fatal reliability weakness inside the SF-26. Because this was not a random lap. It was lap 47. High fuel. Sustained load. Race conditions. Exactly when championships are decided. Was this a simple stress test reaching its limit? Or did Hamilton just uncover a structural flaw that could cost Ferrari wins before the season even begins? In this video, we break down the telemetry warning, the emergency call to the pits, the cooling changes Ferrari rushed in, and the hidden energy issue nobody wants to talk about. Stay with me. Because the final detail changes everything. And if you care about what really decides titles, subscribe now. Let's slow this down. Because the shutdown did not come out of nowhere. Day 3 in Bahrain was supposed to be controlled. No headline laps. No dramatic statements. Just long runs and heavy fuel. Lewis Hamilton was deep into a race simulation. Not chasing a time. Not trying to impress. This was durability work. 47 laps completed. That number matters. Because it means the car had already been running under sustained stress. Lap after lap. High temperatures. Full deployment cycles. And for most of that run, the SF-26 looked strong. Out of slow corners, it was aggressive. The rear end hooked up instantly. The electric torque arrived early. Data from the straights showed Ferrari gaining serious ground in the first phase of acceleration. For a few hundred meters, it looked untouchable. And that is not a small detail. Under the new regulations, traction and early deployment define overtaking opportunities. If you launch better, you control position. Ferrari seemed to have mastered that part. But here is where the tone changes. Halfway down the straight, the energy curve began to drop. Earlier than ideal. Earlier than rivals. The electric boost faded. And suddenly the combustion engine was carrying everything alone. Maximum load. Maximum heat. And when that happens repeatedly, something starts to strain. Hamilton began adjusting his driving. Slight lifts before braking zones. Managing state of charge more carefully. You do not do that in a clean simulation unless something feels off. Then came the data spike. Combustion parameters drifting outside the safe window. Not dramatic enough for flames. But serious enough for engineers to react immediately. They called him in. Urgently. The instruction was clear. Box this lap. But the car slowed before reaching the garage. And when a Ferrari stops on track during Hamilton's first full test program, the image spreads instantly. Now here is the key question. Was this simply an old engine reaching its limit? Or was this the first visible symptom of a deeper energy imbalance? Because Ferrari had made a bold decision. They kept the same power unit from the Barcelona shakedown. They wanted mileage. They wanted stress. They wanted to find the breaking point before the season began. That is strategic. But it is also dangerous. If the hybrid system is forcing the combustion engine to overcompensate, then even a fresh unit could face similar thermal pressure in race conditions. And that possibility is what changes everything. Because this was not a random shutdown. It happened during race simulation. Under realistic stress. Exactly when reliability matters most. So what we saw in Bahrain was not just a stopped car. It was a question mark. A warning sign. And Ferrari now has to decide whether that warning was planned or predictive. Because if the issue is systemic, not situational, then Hamilton is not just adapting to a new team. He is stepping into a project that might already be walking a tightrope. And we are only at the beginning. Now we need to talk about what really makes this dangerous. Because on paper, Ferrari can defend what happened. They can say the engine had extreme mileage. They can say it was a controlled stress test. They can say the shutdown was precautionary. And technically, all of that can be true. But here is the part that does not go away. The energy clipping was visible before the failure. And energy clipping is not caused by mileage alone. It is caused by imbalance. Under the new hybrid regulations, electrical deployment is no longer a bonus. It is central to lap time. Nearly half of the car's total power output depends on how efficiently the battery deploys and recovers. If the battery drains too early on the straight, the combustion engine must compensate. That means sustained high combustion temperatures, higher cylinder pressure, higher thermal stress inside the power unit. Now imagine that cycle repeating lap after lap during a race distance. Deploy, drain, overload, Recover. Deploy again. If the recovery rate is slightly lower than the consumption rate, the deficit compounds. And Bahrain exposed exactly that pattern. Hamilton described the sensation as losing breath halfway down the straight. That is not a random comment. That is a driver describing inconsistent power delivery. And inconsistency destroys confidence. You can handle a slow car. You can handle a fast car. What you cannot handle is a car that changes personality mid-straight. Rocket out of the corner. Brick at the end of the straight. That dual character is what makes the SF-26 fascinating and worrying. Because the chassis looks excellent. The suspension absorbs bumps better than most rivals. The car remains stable in crosswinds. Active aerodynamic behavior appears refined and aggressive. The platform is not the weakness. Which isolates the concern. The power unit. And more specifically, the integration between hybrid deployment and combustion load. Ferrari even introduced additional cooling outlets during the test. That decision alone tells you temperatures were a real topic inside the garage. Opening the bodywork costs efficiency. It costs straight-line speed. Teams avoid that unless reliability demands it. So now Ferrari faces a strategic fork in the road. Option 1. Keep the aggressive deployment philosophy. Exploit that explosive traction advantage. Dominate starts and restarts. But accept higher thermal sensitivity. Option 2. Dial back the deployment curve. Smooth the energy release. Protect the combustion engine. But sacrifice some of that early acceleration edge. And here is why that decision is critical for Hamilton. He is adapting to a new car. A new power philosophy. A new team culture. If the energy system requires constant management, lift and coast adjustments, and battery conservation during fights, that changes how he races. It changes how he defends. It changes how he attacks. And championships are often decided by small margins of execution under pressure. Now add one more layer. Rival teams are watching. If Ferrari truly has superior initial deployment and active aero interpretation, questions will follow. Technical scrutiny increases when performance increases. So Ferrari is balancing performance, reliability, and political pressure at the same time. That is not a comfortable position before the first race. What happened in Bahrain was not dramatic in sound. There were no flames. No visible smoke. But sometimes the quiet failures reveal the most. Because they show you the limits before race day hides them behind adrenaline. The SF-26 may be a title contender. It may be the fastest single-lap machine on the grid. But the real test is not one lap. It is 57 laps on Sunday. And right now, there is a question hanging over Ferrari. Not about speed. About survival. And until that question is answered, every long straight will feel like a risk. Every full deployment zone will carry doubt. And that is not the foundation you want when the championship fight begins. But here is where this story becomes even more uncomfortable. Because the numbers from Bahrain do not scream disaster. They whisper uncertainty. Across the 3 days, Ferrari completed a solid total distance. Hundreds of laps. The equivalent of multiple race distances. Enough running to gather meaningful data. Enough time to see patterns form. And patterns are what engineers fear most. Because a single failure can be random. A repeated tendency is not. On day 3 alone, the team completed over 100 combined laps between both drivers. Leclerc finished his morning program cleanly. Hamilton's afternoon was cut short at 47 laps. Not at the start. Not after 2 exploratory runs. After a sustained simulation. That timing is critical. Failures at the beginning of testing are almost comforting. They are easy to diagnose. Easy to label as teething issues. But a shutdown deep into a race simulation feels different. It suggests cumulative stress, layered fatigue, thermal buildup, and that connects directly to the hybrid architecture. Because this new era is not about peak horsepower alone. It is about sustained balance between electric deployment and combustion durability. If the battery drains too aggressively early on the straight, the system pays for it later. And Bahrain, with its long full throttle zones, amplifies that weakness. Now imagine this at circuits with even longer straights. Imagine this in extreme summer heat. Imagine this while defending position, deploying maximum energy repeatedly under pressure. That is when small inefficiencies become race-ending problems. And here is the psychological dimension. Hamilton is known for rhythm. For building momentum during long stints. If he has to constantly adjust deployment modes, manage state of charge, and anticipate clipping mid-straight, that interrupts rhythm. It forces calculation instead of instinct. And instinct is where champions extract tenths. Meanwhile, Leclerc appears slightly more aligned with the aggressive delivery profile. He rotates the car with that early torque spike. He embraces the sharp edge. But even he cannot escape physics. If the energy system is fundamentally operating near its limit, adaptation only masks the risk. It does not remove it. So Ferrari now stands at a crossroads before the first race even begins. They have built a chassis that looks stable, an aerodynamic package that appears efficient, traction that rivals envy. But the heart of the machine, the power unit and hybrid integration, has shown vulnerability under sustained load. And championships are not lost because of one dramatic explosion. They are lost through small reliability setbacks. A DNF here, a grid penalty there, an overheated race in mid-season. And those consequences begin with moments like Bahrain. The car stopping quietly, engineers staring at screens, data logs being pulled late into the night. Because what they decide in the next few days will define how aggressive they dare to be. Do they unleash the full deployment curve and trust cooling upgrades to cope? Or do they dial it back, protect reliability, and sacrifice some raw performance? That trade-off is brutal. Speed excites headlines. Reliability wins titles. And what Hamilton exposed in Bahrain may not be a catastrophe. But it is a warning. A glimpse of the edge Ferrari is dancing on. The SF-26 might be a sleeping beast. Or it might be a brilliant machine with a fragile core. And until it completes a full race distance at maximum intensity without question marks, that doubt will remain. Because in modern Formula One, the difference between dominance and disappointment is not always visible. Sometimes, it is hidden inside a battery curve, inside a temperature graph, inside a single anomaly on telemetry. And that anomaly, in Bahrain, might have told us more than Ferrari intended.